Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Timothy Elizondo here, and I wanted to share with you this video in order to discuss the exam procedure that is going to be guiding this particular course and the 16-week experience that we're going to be having. And it's very important that students are familiar with this process. Feel free to ask me any questions, because this particular process is, it might be something that is maybe new to students, it might be unique to students, but in addition, it's an exam process that covers multiple weeks, or more specifically, 3 particular units. And sometimes students approach courses online on a week-to-week basis, and the exam procedure is going to require students to be much more proactive and kind of more forward-thinking in its design. All right, so with that in mind, let's turn our attention to the specific exam overview material. And so what this video is going to do is just kind of maybe serve as an orientation to the material presented in this tabulated page to explain the exam procedure. All right, so the first page says that, if you notice, the exam procedure is this course is divided into 3 units. And each unit is going to cover specific chapters within our course readings. So for this very first unit, we're going to have 3 chapters as part of unit, 3 chapters from this particular book, The Ultimate Questions. All right. Now, each unit is going to be guided by several prompts. Perhaps in unit 2, there's going to be 3 prompts. But in this unit, for example, there's 2 prompts, which you can find on this page, and I'll discuss later in this video. Each student is responsible for completing 1 completed outline for each of the prompts of the unit. Completed outlines are outlines that are awarded a 70% or better when graded. So in other words, what this means is if there's 2 prompts, a student is responsible for completing an outline on each of the prompts. And then the student will submit them, and I will grade them. And the outlines have to have at least a 70% or better to be considered to be completed. Right. If a student receives a 70% or better on the outlines for a unit, the student receives the right to choose the prompt they would like to write their exam paper on. Right. So at the end of the unit, there's going to be an exam paper. And if you've completed your outlines, and they've both been graded with at least a C or better, you get to choose which prompt you're going to write your paper on. Now, if a student does not receive 70% or better on all the outlines for a particular unit by the posted due date and time, the student will be assigned a prompt 5 days prior to the due date of the exam. All right. So if you don't have 2 outlines with at least a 70% or better, then you don't get to choose, and I'm just going to randomly assign it to you. Right? Okay? All right. So then the question becomes, well, what's a graded outline? How does that work? Well, outlines are documents that I'm sure many of you are familiar with from high school, from other courses, but it's a written document that uses sentence structure in order to demonstrate both the thesis and the main points within an essay. It's often called a preparation outline in composition, or in kind of the world of speech and debate. So when you hand me the outline and I'm looking at it, these are the particular questions that I'm going to be asking myself. And I encourage you to ask yourself these questions prior to submission. All right. So does your outline answer all the prompt and all that was implied by the prompt, right? So that's my first thing that I kind of look at is, all right, well, is everything that was in the prompt and the prompt was trying to extract, is that present in the outline, right? Or maybe is the outline just trying to address just a single part, because it's got to address all of it, right? Does the outline present a solid thesis on a reasonable progression of ideas? In other words, can I just look at it and see the clear constructed thesis written properly, and then look at the outline and understand the main points, but also the kind of the subpoints to the main points, and also the evidence being used to support the arguments? Does the outline include the best examples and illustrations to demonstrate the validity of your ideas? So are you using specific examples from the course readings, or particular examples that you've kind of extracted from discussions? Or are you, if you're using a metaphor, are there better metaphors? Are there Does your outline include and cite specific examples of the appropriate reading material, class dialogue, and your own original ideas? Each should comprise approximately 1/3 of the essay content. Yeah, so you want to kind of bring in information that other students have used, perhaps from your discussions or perhaps from the assignments that you're going to be seeing that are visible to the class. You also want to be incorporating readings as well. And then I think also you want to incorporate perhaps your own original ideas. Right? And oftentimes that own original ideas could be, how evidence is being connected or how it's being analyzed. It doesn't necessarily have to be your own, original contribution to philosophical thought. Okay? All right, the due dates and policies. All right, so before I show you this, just keep in mind each outline, right? Or I should say each unit, right? It's got outlines. The outlines are linked to the prompts. You want to get these outlines at least to have a C or better, right? So that you can have choice of what you want to write this paper on. Okay? And these outlines are going to have several due dates attached to them. Why several due dates? Because, in other words, so they're going to be, I want to have an opportunity to engage, right? To have feedback. So let's talk about the different due dates. There's the first call. And the first call is going to be an outline where I'm looking for like the macro structure, like what's the working thesis that you have and how do you anticipate developing that argument? And that first call is my opportunity to kind of look at your macro perspective on how you're approaching the prompt and offer suggestions, offer guidance, offer perhaps, just general kind of feedback just to make sure that kind of you're on solid footing with those first couple of steps, if that makes sense, right? Because sometimes without that kind of feedback, students might wander into a dark forest and potentially never be seen again. All right, so we have the first call. Then we've got the last call, right? And the last call is going to be a due date where, look, the outlines are due if you want choice, right? So I need to grade them and see if they've got at least like a C or better so that I can let you know if you have choice. All right, so far we've got two due dates, the first call and the last call. The first call is like, hey, I want your outline so I can give you some preliminary feedback so that you're on the right track, you're heading in a good direction. The last call is going to be, look, these are due, and if you want choice with the exam that's like due in about a week, right, I need the feedback, I need the outlines. Then we've got the final call. And the final call is a due date where if you've ever missed outlines in the past, you can submit them and I'll add them to your grades, right? Or I'll regrade. Let's throw that out there, all right? So 3 due dates. First one be like, hey, first feedback. Second be like, look, this is due for the exam. And the third is, look, if you want points, then I really need these outlines to add them to your grade book. They're considered late, but let's say some points is better than no points, right? So how is the exam graded? In essence, it's a collegiate level essay that you would expect for a professor such as myself to utilize whenever they're evaluating a collegiate level essay in an intro to philosophy class at an institution of higher education. I mean, this is a college transferable course, right? So this is the same course that you would experience if you were enrolled at, Cal State so-and-so, or I don't know, this state, this and that, right? So when I'm evaluating the essays, these are the questions that I ask myself. And I encourage you also to ask as well, right? Do you answer all of the question? Do you have a thesis? If you notice, a lot of the questions are very similar to how the outlines are being evaluated. But I would argue instead in an essay, what's different is the fleshing out, right? The connections between the ideas that are present in the outline, the language selection, the attention to grammar, the attention to other writing concerns, right? Something in an outline, you might have a piece of evidence, for example, in an outline that is appropriate, But if just placed into an essay without proper formatting or language concerns, suddenly it might turn into what is considered to be plagiarism. And you really want to avoid that. And then here are the essay prompts, or sorry, yeah, they are the essay prompts. They're the exam prompts, same thing. Essay prompts, exam prompts for the first unit, right? The first prompt, if you notice, it has multiple questions to it. So it's not just a single question, but instead it's a group of questions that are contained within a prompt. Right. The first prompt is going to be really a classic philosophical issue of, do we live in a false reality and how can I tell? And then the second exam prompt being about, does philosophy have a place in higher education? Is it really that important? All right. So I think also one of the things that I just want to highlight, and I would encourage you to just be mindful of, is you can always submit outlines before the due dates, and I will grade them and give you feedback so that you can improve them and turn them in as the course progresses. So even though there are due dates, you are always encouraged, and I would argue rewarded, for turning in assignments in advance. All right. All right. Well, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. The exam prompts will be changing each unit. So right now we have 2. And then unit 3, we're going to be having 3. So we're going to ratchet up the difficulty level. Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. You are free to use a Canvas email, and I'm around, so I'll be getting back to you. Or if you have a question for myself and or the class, feel free to use the Q&A cafe that is available in your module. All right. So good luck, happy hunting, and feel free to send me any questions that you have.